My name is Eddie Smith. I prefer to be called Aleem. I was born in 1972. I'll be 52 in a couple of weeks. I'm the facilities coordinator here at Iman. The notion is that a lot of times the people who go to prison are bad people. And it's actually the opposite. They're actually good people who did bad things. I'm one of those people. I'm a product of the environment that I grew up in. My household, my mom, she didn't have the best of means, but she taught us principles. She taught us guidelines. She taught about respect, honor, all those things that you expect from a parent. But the reality was that when I went outside of my house, it was the pimp that was on the corners. It was the drug dealer. These were the individuals who were flourishing in the community. And so my objective, my goal was, how was I gonna get my family out of this, what we considered a hell at the time? And for us, or for myself especially, the drug game was the way of doing that. And I justified with myself that I can do this bad thing for a while and then make good on it later on. Come back, clean the community and whatnot. Got into the dope game when I was 14. Actually, ironically, I did my research on like who were the best people to work for, what type of payment I'm supposed to be getting. I got involved in it. But I knew that I couldn't stay home and sell drugs. One statement that my mom used to always say, if you can't go by my rules, then you gotta get out my house. That was the day I went to her and I told her, I said, remember the statement you tell me all these years? I said, I can't live by your rules anymore. And I left that day and became a full-time drug dealer. The thing they don't tell you about when you become a drug dealer, along with the fame and the money and everything, is that you got people that are trying to kill you. You got people that are trying to rob you. You got people that are trying to send you to prison. And so you're dealing with all these facets of the life itself. And along with people trying to kill you, mean that if you don't want to die, then you got to find a way to defend yourself. Unfortunately, that's where I found myself. It was a person who was actually working for me. And I just had to be in the area where he was being robbed. And in the streets, you either defend your property, your location, your area, or you get ate. It's a dog-eat-dog world. I killed the person who was robbing the person that worked for me. And this was at the age of 16. I was tried as an adult, was sent to prison with a life sentence. Everybody that come in, they give you a release date card. For lifers, there is no release date, but they give you a card anyway. And on that card, it says your release date is 9999999. And in mathematics, that means infinity. So in essence, they were telling me I was gonna never get out of prison. This won't be my death. But for some reason, I knew that I was gonna get out. I didn't know the how. I didn't even know the way. But my mind said that this wasn't supposed to be my life. This was for the end of my life. And so I started preparing myself for the day that I eventually get out. And that came with making sure that my mental part of myself stayed keen. That's why I read books. I stayed intuitive, in tune with what was going on in the world. Work on my communication skill with people because I was really introspect at the time as well. I took care of my health. I worked out. I made sure that as best I could, I tried to eat healthy and whatnot. Even going through that at the age of 17 and going through some of the worst situations, worst environment can affect your mental. That is where Islam came in at. Because when I first went in, I was struggling with myself. It's like an internal fight, trying to find some type of peace. And when I heard the term Islam and it was explained to me that the word means peace, I'm like, hold on, what is this? I need to find out what's going on with this. So the more I read about what the word Islam was and what it represented, I'm like, this is what I've been looking for the whole time. And that compelled me to do more research and realize that all the principles and guidelines that Islam was speaking about that brought you peace were all the qualities I already had that my mom instilled within me. It was just a reconnection and like an aha moment. And so whenever those things that will put you like in a dark situation, the prayer would be the outlet. It would be the way to escape. It was the way to bring you out of it. It's a few things. Probably the most simple thing is actually having a choice in the clothes you wear. And this was one of the issues that I was dealing with in my first marriage. Like, women, they are keen to style and stuff like that. So they want to dress their men. But for a person who has somebody tell them, one, you've been wearing the same color for 30 years, then finally have an opportunity to dress yourself, you don't want nobody telling you what to wear. Even if it's for the good, you want to figure things out for yourself. My ego or my pride wasn't so much so that I didn't ask for help. But there are other aspects, having to feed yourself where before somebody told you what time to eat and the food was prepared for you. Now you're in a position where you got to feed yourself. We call it now normalized trauma. That you're so used to things happening around that it just becomes your everyday life now. But there was one incident that really affected me. And to a degree, I'm glad it did, because it showed me that I still somehow had some form of humanity that's part of me. And there was a particular incident where I was transferred to this one facility, Hancock. I think I've been in the system like 20 years at this time. And the moment I got to this place, I'm like, this is not safe. Somebody's gonna get killed right here. And literally, it was even 3 months later, we were on the yard. And whenever you hear an outburst on the yard, it's not a good sign. And next thing you know, he was stabbing the guy. And the guy was trying to get away from him, but he held him. And we stabbed him in the shoulder blade, stabbed him in the stomach. The guy fell down and tried to get away from him. The blade bent. And the guy tried to get away from him. He broke his ankle, so he couldn't get away. The guy himself had a knife on him, but he couldn't get to it. So he took the knife and was standing over him with the knife. And you can see that look in his eye like he finna finish him. I don't know what compelled me to say something, but I said, look, man, cause literally he's like probably 10 feet away from me with all this going on. I said, man, don't do that, man. I said, you don't did enough already. And the guy stopped and looked over at me and then started walking toward me. I'm like, oh man, I don't got myself into a situation. But he walked toward me and he dropped the knife in front of me, walked on. And that was the part that traumatized. The part that traumatized was, it just came, got the guy off the yard. He died literally on the yard, and we started back working out as if nothing happened. But for weeks after that same image kept coming where the guy was like, man, somebody save me, man. He killing me. And I'm like, I wish I could have done more. But in Changa, you understand that you don't get in other people's business because that can cost your own life. And even me making that statement could have been a big situation. And alhamdulillah, it worked out the way it did, but the damage was already done though. Having that recurring dream about what happened was a reminder that my humanity wasn't fully lost, that it did bother me. And I said, for me, that's when I started focusing more on not being so numb to what was going on. If I could go back and talk to my younger self, I would tell me to trust yourself and don't be so hasty and that everything's gonna be all right. But I realized that a lot of my decision making were based off of impatience and not trusting people. So I figured I gotta do it all myself or get it done, or it's not gonna get done. So the things I use now when I'm affected by what's going around me mentally, it's the same thing that the prayer is the cure for me. I have a son now, and having him like teach me some of the more simpler things. And I was sharing this with a group a few months ago about baby isn't taught how to cry, but that's their way of communication. They cry when their diaper needs changed. They cry when they're hungry. They cry when they want to be fed, when they want to play. And so those moments of being with him bring me back to the innocence of like, this is how it's supposed to be. This is the outlet. This is the relief right here. And he's been there for me as well. So the advice I would give a young person who's considering suicide, who think that the world is not worth living in, is actually the advice that I got from a 10-year-old kid, ironically. This one of the things that stands out for me when I first got out. I probably hadn't been out 30 days at the time. Took my dad to a food tasting event that my cousin was a part of. And a 10-year-old kid came up to me, he didn't know me from Adam, and just started a conversation. He said, when I was 9 and about to turn 10, I thought the world was gonna suck and I didn't want to turn 10. He said, you know what though? It turned out to be all right. And I'm like, that's the message. It's gonna be all right. Sometimes we think that the world is gonna end if we end it ourselves, but it only ends for you. The world gonna continue to go on. But if you wake up to see another day, you got another opportunity to have a better day, to have a better life, and for things to change. But if you end it, then you're gonna miss all of that. You're gonna miss the good part of it. And part of that's just like when it's raining. Nobody wants to go outside and play in the rain. So everybody's staying inside. But they wait it out. And when they wait it out, the sun comes out, everybody goes out and play. And that's life in general. It's just a storm that's passing. And the storm that's passing is to teach us something about ourselves. And we're gonna be all right.